Hello everybody and welcome to the Segmentation Engine 3.0 update. This will just be an informal webinar, hopefully not too long, just to show you the key features of the new version, and of course we'll have plenty of time for questions as well. For those of you who don't know me, am Jenny Scudamore, the Director of Products at Baker Richards. Today I am going to be giving you a quick demo of the CRM Planner, the key piece of functionality in the new version, with a bit of help from Nicole Keating, our friend from the Arsht Centre, who was one of the beta testers of this functionality. I'll also be showing you the crosstab tool, a quick update about the basic segmentation, to which we've made a small change, and we'll have a look ahead to future features of the product. And then we will have time for your questions at the end, ably assisted by my colleague Jamie from JCA, who is going to read out any questions that you want to type into your GoToWebinar pane. So, the CRM Planner. Before I demo the CRM Planner itself, I'd like to take a little step back to customer relationship management itself. Because segmentation is not an end in itself, it is a tool to use in CRM. And CRM itself is a really overused term. What it should mean is an enterprise-wide approach that supports the collection, analysis and interpretation of market information to help an organization, i.e. us, understand, measure and change customer behavior. And that last bit is really key. We can obviously, with the segmentation engine, help with the understanding and the measuring, but there's not much point doing all of that unless you're actually going to try and change something. Something like increase people's frequency or just get them to love you that little bit more. CRM without any objective in mind isn't really customer relationship management. It's just customer observation. So with that in mind, we've designed the CRM Planner to try and help you to monitor KPIs and to be alerted to the customers whose relationship with you is changing in some way. Using this, you can set alerts to track the number of customers who have done something new or something that you might want to respond to. You can schedule the alerts to match your marketing schedule. You can get a list of all the customers meeting your criteria each time, and you can have reminders sent to you via email of when the alert has run. You'll find the CRM Planner in the home page of the segmentation engine, and I'm going to jump into mine right now. Now, if you haven't yet set up any alerts, when you land on the CRM Planner, this page will be blank. You will just have the titles ran in the last 7 days and planned. I have already set up a couple of alerts, so these are planned and are going to run, but you will have the new tile. So today what I'm going to do is set up the very simplest of the alerts and one of the more complex ones, and then we will go over to Nicole's environment to see what it looks like when one has actually run. So to set up a brand new CRM alert, first of all you'll be asked what sort of alert do you want to create. Now for now we have got 9 different types. However, we are very keen to hear from all of you once you've used these a little bit about any new types that you think would be helpful. For now, we are going to start with the very simplest one, which is simply new bookers. You can see whichever one you hover on, there's a little tooltip to remind you what it's going to do, but of course you can always get the full description on the help site. New bookers is very simple. There are only a few things that we need to set up. First of all, we need to decide which of our setting sets are we using. So do we want to look at the whole scope of our performances, or do we want to say look at just particular season types? In this case, I'm going to choose my own settings. And then we want to name this alert something. So in this case, the next thing that we do is we choose when we want this alert to run. So we click on the recurrence date and you'll get a dialog a little bit like when you set up a meeting in Outlook or other calendar type applications. And the first thing you have to do is choose the alert that the date should first run. Now by default this will be tomorrow, but it might be that actually we want our alert to run on Mondays, so maybe we're going to change this to the 11th. And then how often do we want it to run? Now this is new bookers, people making their first booking with us, and I want to be alerted to this regularly. So I want this to recur every week, 1 week from the start date. But I might want it less often. I might want to choose monthly, and in that case I might want it to recur on a specific date of the month each time, or I might want it to always recur on, let's say, the second Monday of every month. In this case, we're going to stick with weekly, and we're going to have it recur every week from the start date. You can also choose whether you want that to carry on forever, or do you want to say, actually, I know that I only want to use this for while the season is going on, and then the season is going to stop for 6 months, and therefore we want to end by a particular date. You then have 2 extra options. Firstly, email notifications. You might want to be reminded every week to come and look at your alert, or to go and look at the lists that it has created. So if you want to have email notifications, you tick this box and select recipients. Now the people here will be the users that you have submitted email addresses for in your organization. It might be that your particular login doesn't have any email addresses associated with it. If you would like to associate some email addresses with your Segmentation Engine login, just send them to SE Tech Support and they will put those in for you. The final option is probably the most important one. This is output lists automatically. So this alert is going to run every single week, and every week it's going to pick up all the people making their first ever booking transaction within the JS settings set. We might want to have a list of all of those people appear automatically in Tessitura so that we can make use of it. We don't want to have to come in here and choose to output that list every single week. Instead, we can just say output lists automatically, and that means every time this alert runs, it will send the list of the customers who are captured into Posty, and just like tags get sent into Tessitura by Posty every night, these lists will go as well. So setting up new bookers is as simple as that. This is now in our planned section. There is no last run on date because of course it hasn't yet run, but it tells you when it's next going to run. You can also at any point come back and check what the options are that you set for this alert. You can also, using this icon at the bottom, download a calendar item. So if you didn't choose to have the email alerts, you can instead say, actually, I would like a calendar item that I will then pop into my Outlook or other software. The magnifying glass icon in the middle, Nicole will show you in a minute because this is only applicable to an alert that has actually run. So that's a really simple one. I'm also going to show you one of the more complex ones. This is at risk of lapsing. So we've dealt with completely new bookers, people who are making their very first transaction. We're now going to look at people who you haven't seen for a long period of time. At risk of lapsing has a few more options. First of all, as usual, we choose our settings set. But then the key question that you have to ask yourself when setting up at risk of lapsing is how long do we want to wait before we consider someone to be completely lapsed? That means no transactions, no donations, no attendances at all, nothing for so long that we think that if we do ever reach out to them again, we'll do so as a new booker, not as an at-risk one. So in this case, let's say that we think our completely lapsed and gone point is 5 years. You can see you can choose either years or months here, so you can set the period exactly to suit you. The next thing is the period of inactivity. Now this is the period over which we say, okay, if they haven't done anything for this long, then we start to consider them at risk of lapsing. So it might be that we don't think 1 year of inactivity is enough to think that somebody is at risk of lapsing. It might be that we've looked at our recency statistics and actually we think that 2 years is when we should start to consider someone at risk of lapsing. Or in this case, I'm going to say 18 months. So if someone has not transacted, donated, or attended in the last 18 months, then I am going to consider them at risk of lapsing, and I want to be alerted to them. You then have two options for excluding people. The first one is exclude oncers. Now, if someone was only a oncer to begin with, you're unlikely to consider them at risk of lapsing. It's more that you consider them to be a one-off booker whom you might seek to get to come back again, but it's not as if they've had a frequent behaviour from which they have lapsed. So typically, you're not going to want to include them in a risk of lapsing alert, but you might, you have the option. You also have the option whether to exclude subscribers since the lapsed point. Typically, when you're thinking about lapsing subscribers, you are dealing with that activity quite separately to people who are not subscribers but are simply decreasing their frequency. So if you have got a completely separate and well-oiled machine about dealing with subscribers who look like they're at risk of lapsing, you're probably going to want to keep that separate to your at risk of lapsing CRM alert. So you have that option here. And as always, there's more help on the tooltips or on the website for a fuller description. So we've made our decisions. We have decided that someone is considered completely lapsed and gone if they haven't done anything for 5 years, but if they haven't done anything for 18 months, we want to know about them. So I am going to name this my 18-month risk alert. And again, I am going to set the recurrence. So how often do I want to know about people who are looking as if they are at risk of lapsing? I think in this case, I want to know about these people once a month. And I would like it to always be the first Friday of every month. Again, I'm not going to pick an end date. So, again, we can choose whether to email notifications and we can choose whether to output lists automatically. So we will get the list of all of those people who haven't done anything for 18 months appearing in Tessitura once a month. So that's two created. Now, in order that you can see what it's like when an alert has actually run on some real live data, we're now going to swap over to Nicole. The Arch Centre were one of our beta testers, and we're going to change over to her screen now so that you can see on some real data what these alerts look like.
Hello, can you see my screen?
We can.
Wonderful. So I have quite a few different alerts set up along with lists that run automatically. Today we're going to look at this NKSE new second timers, because one of the things that I know I always am curious about is when we're able to convert someone from a one-timer to a second timer. So I have them set up in order to automatically run. And so we can see that through here in our options. I do select to get email notifications on some of these, and this is one of those. And also I am outputting automatically. So then when I come over here, in order to see my results, you can see over time how this same set has fluctuated over time. So the very first time I set it up, it was 341. This past week, it was 327. So let's just take a look at this one here, February 18th, which had 310 guests on it, or constituent records. And so there with the 310, I have this one that has already outputted on February the 18th. But then also, if I wanted to, I could output lists right now and send those over to Posty of those who have not booked since then. And I can also output one that says 8 people who have booked since then. Since I have all of these automatically going to Tessitura through Posty, let's take a look at what that looks like in List Manager. So I can go over to Tessitura, and I can go over to Tools and List Manager. And then through List Manager, I have all of my regular lists, but I want to check off that I don't want to see my lists only, because this is coming over through Posty. So I had called that list NKSE new second timers. So here are all of the postie lists that you can see I've been creating like a mad person. And I'm very excited about all of this new functionality. And then here's that list of 210, or say 310 right here that was done on February the 18th. I can use that in Tessitura just as I would any list. I can create an output set to pull in additional information. We can mail them. We can email them. We can call them. We can do whatever it is that we want to do. We can send up and scan reminders and alerts, things of that sort. So I can just use it as I would any other list.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Nicole.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to bring us back over to my screen now. And we're going to look at the next major piece of functionality in version 3, and that is the crosstab tool. So with the crosstab tool, you can see how any two variables or segmentations relate to one another without having to output tags or use tstats to do it. So, for example, which of my time of booking cohorts overlap with which of my RFV segments? This is the kind of thing that we can find out. You will find you can get to the crosstab tool several different ways within version 3. So you may have found this already. If you use the main menu on the home screen, it's listed there. Or if you go to the analysis homepage, you can see there is a big icon for it with a little description underneath. You can also, though, get to it from each of the behavioral variables themselves. So if you are on the cohorting page of, for example, average annual frequency, and what you think is, I really want to cross average annual frequency with year's tenure, then you can just click on the crosstab tool link at the bottom of your variables page, and if you do that, it's going to load the variable that you've chosen within crosstab. And I'll show you in a moment what that looks like. So first of all, I'm going to go back into my segmentation engine and show you what it looks like. Now, if you have loaded the crosstab tool from the main menu or from the big grey hexagon on the analysis homepage, then it's going to load like this, with as your first variable, as the columns across the top, your basic segmentation. And as variable B, the rows down the side, it's going to load recency. So we can immediately see, for example, that of our multiple segment, that is the segment who come in various years, and at least one of those years they have come more than once. So these are our most loyal people. We can see that, for example, 14,854 of them have been within the last 18 months. These cohorts are however you've chosen to name those cohorts on your behavioral variable dashboard. So this is how it loads if you come from one of those areas, but of course you can change it. If we open up variable A here, you can see that you have the choice of all of the variables from the main behavioral variable dashboard and the ones from the new variables lab dashboard, plus all of your segmentations, so that includes a custom segmentation if you have one, basic and RFB otherwise. You also have the rep score variables. If you are using the rep score dashboard and rep score classifications, then the three rep score variables, max, min, and average, are in here as well. So in this case, I'm going to choose RFV, and this will probably take a few seconds to load. But what this is going to give us is, as all of our column headers are 10 RFV segments. So just to remind you, RFV is the segmentation that takes all of your customers and ranks them in terms of their recency, their frequency, their ticket value, and their donation value, and then sorts them into the top 10 people, the top 10% of people, the next 10% of people, and so on, right down to the bottom 10% of people by rank. And at the moment, while we're still on recency in variable B, we can see that, as we would expect, there is a definite correlation here. So you're very unlikely to have anybody who is as recent as has come in the last 6 months in your high deciles. They're going to be in your low deciles, they're going to be in your higher deciles, because by definition they need to be fairly recent in order to get into those top deciles. We want to look, though, at RFB crossed with time of booking. So this is going to recalculate and show us how early do people typically book. And again, these are named how I chose to name them in my behavioral variables dashboard. And we still have our RFB segments along the top. So we can see how many of, for example, our most loyal best leads are last-minute bookers, not very many in this case. How many are super early birds, lots in this case. Now, if we want to dig a little deeper into any one of these segments, say, for example, we're really interested in the people who are in a low decile, but who are very early bookers, we can, of course, output a list, just as you can from other analysis reports in the segmentation engine. If you want to output a list, you simply click in the cell. It will tell you which constituents you've chosen. You can name that list whatever you like and output it to Posty. And as soon as your Posty runs, that list will be there for you in Tessitura. We can also filter this chart further. So I will show you this in another one that I've already started up. So here I am looking at tenure, how many years have people been coming for, crossed with price preference index. So the price preference index is the variable that shows you whether people are choosing higher priced seats than your average price or lower priced seats than your average price. Now in this case, I'm looking at tenure, but I've also chosen to filter by a segment of the basic segmentation. So over here, I've chosen basic and I've chosen the segment multiple, multiple. So again, that's our people who have come in more than 1 year, but who have also come more than once in at least one of those years. And therefore, you can see we have 0 in tenure up to 1, because by definition, you can't be in the multiple, multiple segment if your tenure is only 1 year. But then we can see how many people we have in each of the other cross sections. Now, I might want to look at, for example, the big chunk of people who have a high price preference. In other words, they like seats that are of a higher price than the average at the performances that they attend, and who have been coming for years and years and years. And again, if I want to output those, I can just click, name my list, and output that straight to Posty. You'll see we also have these no cohort rows and columns. That's because depending on the variables that you choose, you might not be covering the same scope of customers with both of your cohorts. This is actually more obvious if we go back to RFV crossed with time of booking. Now everybody within your setting set gets an RFV cohort because everybody is ranked by their recency, frequency, donation value, and ticket value. Whereas you can only have a time of booking cohort if you have made some bookings. So if you have got some donor-only people within your setting set, and indeed we do, we have some people who never come, but they have made a donation, so they are here in decile 9, then they don't have a cohort for time of booking because they haven't booked. And again, they might be people for whom you want to output a list. So while we are thinking about segments, I am now going to close up my crosstab tool because another thing that I wanted to show you is the small tweak that we have made to the basic segmentation. So the basic segmentation is the simplest one of all, and what we've done now is try to make it even simpler to understand. Don't forget, you can always see the short descriptions here in the segmentation report. And of course, very importantly, you can rename these segments to whatever makes the most sense for you. Multiple is merely a factual description of what is happening. It is not a good name for a marketing segment. So please do name them whatever is helpful to you. But the main purpose of the basic is really to be a top-level way to filter your booker base before you dig deeper into the more subtle variables. So we have made this even simpler. All the segmentation actually does is, first of all, it asks the question, has this person bought subscription tickets within your scope? If the answer is yes, they go in the subscriber segment. End of. If the answer is no, then we ask two more questions. First, in how many season years, however you've chosen to define those in the segmentation engine, have they come? Is it one or is it more? And then second question, what is the maximum number of times that they've come within any one season year? And if the answer is once, then if they only came in 1 year, then they are a oncer. If they came in more than 1 year, then they are a oncer in multiple years. If the answer is more than one is their maximum number of times within a year, then they are a multiple once. If they've only come in 1 year, they are a multiple if they've come in more years. And it's as simple as that. There is no longer any averaging or anything being done. So you'll always be able to really simply understand why someone has ended up in the segment that they have. This is particularly important because now that we have the CRM planner, we have some alerts that are making use of the basic. So these last two types at the bottom, the new frequent loyalist and the new once a year regular, they make use of the basic. New frequent loyalist will capture anyone who is making the booking that turns them into a multiple. So in the past, they might have been someone who typically came once a year. Maybe some years they didn't come at all, but when they did come, they only came once within any given year. But now they've made the booking that turns them into someone who has come more than once within 1 year and has come in multiple years. They are new frequent loyalist, a target for increasing frequency and loyalty even more. New once a year regular, that is someone who is joining the only once in any given year, but in more than 1 year segment. So both of those can be found in the CRM planner. And of course, full description of how they both work can be found on the help site. Just log in with the same login that you use to get into the segmentation engine itself. So I also wanted to take this opportunity to look a bit beyond version 3 to things that are coming up in the future. First of all, a note about analytics. A lot of you make use of your segmentation engine tags in T-Stats. So those of you who are already on version 15 and therefore have already got your hands on Testatura Analytics will be wanting to use them there as well. So similarly to T-Stats, this needs a cube customization. We realise that there's been a bit of confusion among the Testatura community about version 15 and version 15.1 and when exactly Testatura will let you have customizations to your analytics cubes. So just to clarify, it is true that they are no longer planning to make that ability available to end users in 15.1, but they have assured us that it will be available to us so that after they release 15.1, we will be able to release the customization that means that you can use your segmentation engine tags inside analytics, thereby enhancing your use of analytics. Meanwhile, in the application itself, we will of course be getting on with our next point release. So beyond 3.0, we've already been working on the request that we have heard most often from all of you, which is the customer inclusion list as opposed to the customer exclusion list that we have at the moment. So at the moment in the customer exclusion list, you can upload or create a list of people to exclude from your settings sets. And a number of you have told us that what you really want to be able to do is run analysis on just a small select list of people that you have output from Testatura. So now there will be similar functionality to the customer exclusions list, but instead you can upload a list of IDs you might already have that you've already brought out from Testatura, and you'll be able to run segmentation analysis on just those people. So that's one of the things that we are planning to put in the next release. But most importantly, the book is by no means closed on what will go in that release or on when that release is going to be. So please do send us your requests. If there are things that you have been dying to ask for, now is a great time. You can send requests or indeed questions of any kind to setechsupport@bakerrichards.com. If you've got a more general request, please also feel free to send it to segmentationengine@bakerrichards.com. My colleague Mitch will collect your requests no matter which address you use, so please don't be shy. Do get in touch anytime.